It's always that anxious moments, isn't it? We're live one place, recording another.
Yep.
Welcome to the Public Speaking Expert Podcast. It's another live recording of the Public Speaking Expert Podcast. We record them live every Monday, but we release them every Saturday. So make sure you're listening, you are following, you are commenting nice things, of course, and you're sharing them with your networks and you're subscribing because every week we share with you tips, tools, advice, steps, information about how you can go out there and be more influential with your speaking. I am Elliot Kay, in case you didn't know, and I have been doing this now for a long time. We are in season two, and season two is all about influence. So I'm excited to share with you everything to do with how you can use speaking to be influential, how you can influence as a speaker. I said that twice in the same different kind of way. How you can influence as an expert, I was going to say. And today I have with me an incredible guest. Now I have the one and only Amanda C. Watts, and she's going to be sharing with us about being an introvert and being a speaker and what that entails and what it does with your introverted brain and your how much you have to lift yourself up and let yourself relax afterwards. So let me tell you a quick story. So a few years ago, Amanda and I, we shared a stage. There was myself, my business partner, at the time, Monique, and Amanda, and we got Google Campus. And I think we had 80 plus people in the audience, and they all came to see us in our brilliance. And you think that Amanda, when she got there and she stood up and spoke, she was confident and she was wearing, and she was confident, by the way, and everything was fine. But there's a twist to the tale. That wasn't the case. And that's what we're talking about when we go there. But first things first, welcome to the podcast, Amanda. Thank you for being with us. First things first, have you had a good January? Because as we kind of come to the end of the words we're recording this, it's the
Yeah.
end of January 2023. Have you had a good January?
I've had an amazing January. It was my 48th birthday last week. So
Happy birthday.
I know I'm getting really old. And with it comes a lot of those mindset things of, oh my gosh, my age, is that going to get in the way of growth and my influence? And how's it going to impact? Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey this January because 48 also marks 10 years really running my business well. So yeah, it's been a very important month this year for
You're
sure.
a year older than me. I'm going to be 47 next Sunday. Am I
All
going
right, rub it
47 or
in.
48? No,
Yeah,
47. God, I can't remember. You see, age. No, I'm joking.
you're just like a young.
Congratulations. Happy birthday. Were you spilled rotten?
Yeah, I was, I guess. I don't like to celebrate birthdays too much. When you get to this age, it's not about the presents and doing things. It's about, well, I survived another year, aren't I lucky? That's kind of how I feel right now. So yeah, but no,
Ah,
I had a nice time. I had a good time.
you don't look a day over 21. So,
Oh, you say all the right things,
what can I say? I've had years of practice. So yes.
Elliot.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, happy birthday. And I'm glad January's kicked off really well. So before we pick up from Google, because I think it's a good starting point, just
Yeah.
tell our viewers, our listeners, and hello to everyone listening live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, of course. So, my name is Amanda C. Watts, and the C is there for branding reasons. And that's something that we could possibly go into if you want to. If not, then I'll share that another time. And I specialize in helping business owners to grow a business using their introvert personality. So, my kind of clients that I work with, I love working with accountants, I love working with consultants, I love working with advisors, people who are experts at what they do, but probably with growing a business because they're surrounded by extrovert people, but they're an introvert. They energy has to be preserved. The way they think is slightly different from how you would imagine the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's of the world. And I really enjoy understanding them. And well, I'm one myself. I'm an introvert myself. So I really enjoy understanding that there's different kinds of introverts and really taking someone's personality and enabling them to grow a business and do things like speaking, like you talk about, and showing up and doing marketing in a way that is aligned with their introvert personality. So that's my sweet spot, and I thoroughly love it.
Brilliant. But you didn't always focus in on introverts, did you?
No, no, not at all. So I was known for branding and marketing, and I worked with coaches and consultants, and I helped them grow a business from scratch. And what I think is one of my favorite sentences is, "You are your niche." And to realize was the more I worked with people, the ones I could really help are the ones where I was a few steps ahead of them in my journey and they could relate to what I'd been through. So you and I are talking about speaking today, and we'll talk about Google in a minute. But like for me, everyone thinks it's easy for me to show up and talk today, and they think it's easy for me to stand on a stage, and they think it's easy for me to go live on video. And huge journey, and I share how I've done that, despite the fact that all I want to do is sit in my house, never leave my house. I don't really want to talk to people. It's that's kind of the way I am. I'm not this sociable creature, and I help people grow a successful business because I've had a great business. I have a great business, despite the fact that I'm an introvert. So I embrace that. So that's kind of why I've morphed into that, and it's a real passion of mine, because I can really help people.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the challenges introverts have when it comes to speaking, getting visible. Let's get visible, visible.
Visible.
Like what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not
What are
doing
some? Because I know, having worked with introverts myself and trained introverts, that your brain is wired differently.
Yeah.
You process information differently, and
Mm-hmm.
to pick yourself up, to
Mm-hmm.
get to that kind of level of energy to kind of present, takes a lot more energy.
Totally.
Yeah. So
Totally.
tell us a little bit
So
some of the challenges they have.
yeah, before we dive into that, and I will answer that question in 1 second, I just
Yes.
want to explain what an introvert is so that
Yes.
those listening can really get their head around, am I an introvert? Some people will be like, I'm an extrovert in an introvert's body, or I'm an introvert in an extrovert, and all this kind of thing. So I'll just very clearly explain what an introvert is.
Yes.
So
Go.
an extrovert wakes up in the morning, they do not have a huge amount of energy. They wake up, they have their coffee, but they get their energy. This is an extrovert, gets their energy from people. So they wake up in the morning, imagine they have no coins at all in their pocket. And every interaction with a person gives them energy. And at the end of the day, they have 5 coins and they're buzzing and super, super excited. That's an extrovert. Introvert is the opposite. They've slept all night. They have woken up with 5 coins, the opposite of an extrovert. And every interaction with a person, they lose a coin until at the end of the day, they have no coins at all. Okay. So an extrovert gains energy from people, and an introvert loses energy being coins. And that's really what the difference is between an extrovert and an introvert. Now, that then has a knock-on effect for when you are wanting to go out and do marketing, because traditional marketing, like we're talking about here and going out on stage, is I have to go on stage, I've got to talk to people, I've got to work a room, I've got to be out there. So when someone does a speaking gig and they're an introvert, they finish the speaking gig and want to go home, they're exhausted. An extrovert does a speaking gig and then they're like, hey, let's go to the bar afterwards. And they're the two completely different things. And that's what we have to focus on, is how do we get to the stage where we can show up, do a speaking gig, have energy, provide influence, provide the value, and from that still be able to function the next day at work, because we're exhausted if we stand on a stage. So we stand on stage on a Wednesday, on Thursday we don't get much work done because we've given all that energy to people. Does that make sense, Elliot?
It does. It does. You have a happy birthday here from Jason, who's watching us, and hi,
Oh, yeah.
Jason, who's watching us. So hello to you. For those of you listening, a few weeks down the line, we record these lives, and people send us all kinds of messages. So if you're a bit confused why you suddenly mentioned Jason, that's why we mentioned Jason. No, it makes sense. So is there a bank I can take these coins into and make, cash them in?
Yeah, there is actually. So what we can do is, first of all, understand who we are, because to make things even more complicated, there's different kinds of introverts that you get. But if we understand what gives us energy and what doesn't give us energy, we can then organize our life so that if we've got a speaking gig, so say, for example, you and I went to Google. After we spoke at Google, we went out for pizza. I don't know if you remember that. The three of us
Yeah,
went
yeah,
out
yeah.
for pizza. going out for pizza was really difficult for me because what I'd done is I'd stood up on the stage and I'd given my all. And then after I'd spoken on the stage, there were two places, there were two queues that were formed. One that was formed to speak to you and Anik, and one that
Yep.
was formed to speak to me. So we had the conversation with people after the event, and then you said, "Let's go out for pizza," and my whole oh my gosh, I have to go now and be really sociable. And by the way, caveat to this, Elliot, Anik, and I knew each other well. So it wasn't like we were strangers, but
Yeah.
I had given all my energy. So that was fine. That was lovely. It was nice to go out, but I was glad to go home at the end of it. Whereas I think you're more of an extrovert, Elliot. So you were probably buzzing from speaking, and the thought of going for pizza was quite exciting for you. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, at the
Yeah,
time, I
yeah,
think, yeah, that's
yeah,
true. Things have
absolutely.
changed slightly, but yeah.
Great. So for us as introverts, we have to start acknowledging who we are as people and accepting that we do not have the energy to be the drumming bunny and keep going and keep going and keep going and talking to loads and loads of people. So we have to manage it. So going to events, speaking events, block out after you've done a speaking event, block out the next day and expect that it's just going to be a day where you're going to read a book, you're going to watch videos, you're going to sleep a little bit, you're going to eat really well. I think managing our body and managing our energy is far more introvert than it is for an extrovert, because an extrovert gets the energy from being out there and doing things.
So would you say, this just popped to me, that introverts fall under neurodiversity? Would they?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I
is
would
that is
say.
that right?
I would say so, although I'm not like even okay, we're using the terminology introvert and it's labeling people, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of putting people into a box
No,
because
yes.
I feel for me that understanding I'm an introvert has helped me. It does help me when I'm talking to people because I say, if I'm uncomfortable in a situation, do you know what? This isn't working out for me. I'm a bit introverted. I'm going to go home now. So I now own it.
Yeah.
But I think also introverts have been given a bit of a bad rap that we're not very sociable and we're quiet and we even at school I was a really big introvert at school and I got given the nickname of snob. Now I wasn't a snob, I just didn't know how to talk to people, which is why I didn't talk to people. I think that we can say that we're neurodiverse, but then you'll find that a lot of extroverts are also neurodiverse in a different way.
Mm.
So I think we're all a little bit that way, maybe.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because having trained introverts as part of our programs in the past, it's kind of where I learned that the wiring
Mm,
in an introvert's brain is different from an extrovert,
yes,
and
it is. Yeah, very much so.
how you assimilate information, how you communicate information, which is why when I heard you speak, I was like, is should introverts? I know we don't like to box people in, but if we're talking
Yeah,
wholesomely, do they
yeah,
fall under the like the brain is wired different, right? And
yeah.
therefore might need
So
different attention.
for me, it was very much about knowing your subject. So there's four different kinds of introverts.
Right.
There's a thinking introvert, a restrained introvert, a social introvert, and an anxious introvert. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a thinking introvert, and a thinking introvert is someone who thinks a lot about a subject and really goes deep on a subject to understand it. So I love brand. You know that brand is my one and only favorite things. I love creating good products and making them look good. And I go super deep on that. So I'm not an expert in Facebook advertising, YouTube advertising, all of these different things. My marketing expertise is deep on one subject. So a thinking introvert is someone who loves to think and go deep. A restrained introvert is someone who overthinks, and I'm saying this with love, is someone who overthinks and a bit of blockage for them. So they are introverted, they're thinkers, but they do have blockage. A social introvert is someone who probably doesn't like being around lots and lots of people. They're okay with one or two people, but not loads. And the anxious introvert is someone who just finds everything really hard work. They're the ones that are called shy. They're the ones who don't show up at all doing marketing, and they need the most support. The majority of introverts sit under thinking introvert and social introvert.
Right. And can
Mhm.
introverts versus they,
Yeah.
can the anxious introvert or the social
Mhm.
introvert be kind of coached or treated or
Hmm.
directed with traditional, let's say, neurolinguistic programming or hypnosis or
Yeah.
any of those tools, or do they need a more specific type of, I don't want to say, I can't think of the word,
Yeah.
guidance, I think is
Yeah.
the best.
So I absolutely, I think all of us can be NLP'd and can be supported in that way. Absolutely, because that's a whole nother wiring of the brain.
Yeah.
I think that introverts and extroverts is more about energy than the wiring of the brain, if that makes sense.
Okay.
What I would say for an anxious introvert is they don't like the. So an anxious introvert is the most difficult person to get to speak on stage because when you're on stage, the spotlight's on you. But an anxious introvert is really podcast host because the spotlight isn't on you as the host, it's on the person that you're interviewing. So what we do when we work with our clients is we say to them, what kind of introvert are you? And then if they say, oh, I'm an anxious introvert, not that they would label themselves that until I'd spent some time with them, but if they come across as an anxious introvert, I wouldn't say to them, get up on stage and speak. It's too much for them. What I would say is run a podcast and interview people, then it's not about you, it's about the person in front of you. A restrained introvert, I would say, is difficult at finishing things. So I would say have a partnership. So where you and I went to Google and spoke on the stage, absolutely great for a restrained introvert if somebody else is making sure that it's organized because they would overthink it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fascinating. So, in terms of yourself, your experience, while I would probably, although as I say, things have shifted since having kids. I think these days I either go back to the hotel room because it's nice and quiet and I can get a quiet
Oh,
night's
yeah.
sleep. I probably do leave social occasions a bit earlier, only because I know how tired I'll be if I
Mhm,
don't. Um, so for example, me before doing a speaking gig, of course I would prep, I would get ready, but an hour before, I would probably get there early to meet some of the audience, meet the crowd, feel the room and energy, right?
mhm,
And then before an hour before my talk, I have my routine that I go through, all the different things I've been doing over the years, and then I get on stage, and yes, I
mhm,
would feed on the energy.
mhm,
I would read the room if things going
mhm.
right or not, and then I would tweak accordingly. And then coming off, yes, I would be wanting to meet,
Yep,
and talk to people
yep,
afterwards. And I would hang around for one or two drinks. And you're right, I'm probably one of the people, should we go to the bar? I
yep.
remember that when I did a talk just towards the end of last year in Belfast at Queen's University. In the end, I was hoping that we'd go to the Student Union bar because I
Yeah.
could have a few drinks and go there. And plus, I haven't
Oh,
been to
how
Student Union bar for a
horrendous.
few years,
Yeah.
right? How's it different for you getting ready for a talk
Yeah. Really
and
interesting.
holding yourself? Tell
Mm.
me the process you would go through as an introvert.
The process for me is I tend to drive everywhere rather than go
Okay.
on the train. And the reason why is because I am in my cocoon, in my environment, and not being affected by people around me. So I will drive to a speaking gig. When I get to the speaking gig, I will make sure I know where I'm going, and then I will go and hide in the bathroom until 2 minutes beforehand. I have to walk on stage. I walk on stage, I walk off stage, I go to my car, and I go home. And that is literally the way. So, where you would get there an hour and work the room, I would find a reason. So, I remember as well, like I really remember it clearly, which is unlike me. But I remember I was the person that was at the back of the room when people
Yeah.
were arriving, and I was kind of shuffling stuff around and sorting things out. And you were out there being your Elliotness. You had all of that about you. So for me, no way could I work a room for an hour beforehand, and no way would I go to the bar afterwards. I literally would hide in the bathroom until 2 minutes before I had to be on stage.
And that's just to conserve energy and to make sure when
Mm-hmm.
you're on stage, you can
Yeah,
give everything and then you've
yeah.
given everything. So, if someone that it's about energy management, just out of interest, why wouldn't you like book a hotel room and stay the night to kind of rest quicker? Because
Um,
doesn't, and it just out of interest more than anything.
No, I I think actually it depends on the person, because some people could do
Yeah.
that. I have got a really lovely car. I've bought like the nice, because that's my haven.
Yeah.
I like driving. Uh, I also, like you, I have to get into a state. So my
Yeah.
state would either be one that's calm and I have a quiet car, or maybe I would listen to a podcast, or I'd listen to something to get me in the right state. But it would be my choice, my environment. If you are, here's the other thing as well that might be just aligned with me not with being an introvert, but I like to do my hair at home. I like to get myself ready. I don't want to take a change of clothes. I don't like staying at hotels unless they're really, really nice hotels. So it's just me. My personality is I'd rather be in my plush car than a 3 or 4 star hotel where I haven't got my hair dry, I haven't got my straighteners, and I haven't got everything that I need. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's a
Again,
girly answer, not an introvert's answer. I think you'll find.
well, no, it's an answer. I think, again, for me now, it's about knowing that there's no kids that are going to come in the room. I have a quiet room.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of my thinking. I even get there in the night before often just so I can have a good
Yeah.
night's sleep with no disturbances. I know your kid's a bit older, but
Mine are
starts
much
waking.
older than that. Mine are 21
Exactly.
and 18, so they don't disturb me. I leave them asleep. They haven't even got up by the time it's 12 o'clock. So
Exactly. So
yeah,
slightly different. Maybe it
slightly.
will change. But yeah, and it's not even like when I go to events and when I speak that I go out the night before. Even when I go London, I go partying. I don't. I just go into my hotel room and I just enjoy being in the quiet. So for someone listening, introverts listening, maybe those who speak a little or want to get more visible and through the
Mm.
use of speaking and being more influential, what would be your kind of tips or your guidance? And of course, we'll invite them to connect with you towards the end as well. But what would be kind of some nice juicy tips for introverts who want to speak, who are currently speaking but want to up their game?
Yeah, 100%. So like we have some superpowers, us introverts, and one of our superpowers is that we are thinkers, we're researchers, and we're listeners. Can do with those three superpowers is really have an amazing talk, rather than just show up and let our personality come out and say, hey everybody, and let's get this room moving. Instead of doing that, we can
Yeah.
create something that is super valuable when we stand on stage. It doesn't matter if we're nervous, it doesn't matter if we're monotone when we first start doing it, when we're just breaking into the speaking. That doesn't matter. I would say that the quality of content is the thing that will get us ahead. And that means that we prep in our house, we prep in our office, we make sure we're, really, really happy with the content. We make sure that our content is different from other people, so it's not the same. Because some people buy personality, but there are some people that could speak very tone, very thoughtfully, but that content is transformational. So we have to say, let's go deep on content, and then we'll work on our personality, how we show up on stage, bringing our energy as our confidence grows. Okay. So I think a really good example of that was after COVID. I hadn't spoken on stage for 2 years, and I had a half an hour speaking slot, and I was speaking at something called the Digital Accountancy Show. And I got through this speaking slot in 15 minutes. It used to be a half an hour talk, and I got through it in 15 minutes because I was so nervous. But I got through it because I hadn't spoken for 2 years, because that's the other thing as well, is speak often, because that really helps, rather than speak once a year. But I hadn't spoken for 2 years, and I spoke so fast because I was so nervous. I literally, like I said, I drove there. I got there 2 minutes before, went straight on stage, then came off the stage. A couple of people spoke to me, and I went home, and that was it. And I would say was that the content was excellent. So I got messages afterwards saying, hey, sorry, I missed you. I loved your talk. But I didn't have the confidence standing on stage because I hadn't been on stage for a couple of years. So the quality is really important, I think, because our personalities don't always come across as easily as an extrovert does.
Okay, so the quality of the talk. What about in terms of the mindset? What do you think introverts need to do to get ready? I mean, you mentioned the day after, book it off,
Yep.
read, do gardening.
Yeah.
go for long walks, whatever
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
might be. And that'll be individual, right?
Yeah.
But in
Absolutely.
terms of the mindset aspect to get ready, but even during, right? Because I think what I'm understanding is introverts can probably the ability you get thrown a bit more than an
Mhm.
extrovert who can then switch on the personality, dial it in, dial it down,
Yeah.
So from a mindset point of view, what can a lot of introvert or some introverts listening do?
Yeah. So focusing on the fact that it's not about us. As an introvert, we are nervous to have the spotlight on us. We're nervous to be put on the spot and have to think fast. And if we can stand on the stage, if we can speak on a podcast, if we can share our thoughts and help people. So wake up every single day going, I'm doing this to help people, I'm doing this to serve people. That then makes it easier for us to show up and share our gold than if we're like, hey, I'm about to become famous and raise my personal brand, because that's a whole different thing. So, this is a series about influence. We want to influence people not because we want to be famous, because we don't want to be famous. We want to influence people to change the world. So if you're an introvert that wants to change the world for the better, and if you're an introvert that's with the thought of speaking or struggles with the thought of marketing, it's not about you, love. It's not about you. Just get yourself out there and help people with the gift that you've been given. And that's how I've got through everything. And whether or not I'm showing up to change the people in the room's lives, or if I'm showing up to change my children's lives, because the knock on effect is that I will grow my business by showing up. If you make it so it's not about you, it then becomes much, much easier to overcome our shyness, our nervousness, our overthinking is what we do a lot of.
And I think that you have to, there's a key distinction between famous and being known,
Yeah,
right? That you
totally.
can get known in your industry, but it doesn't mean you're famous. And I think that can
Yes.
almost be a consolation to an introvert that,
Mhm.
you can get known as the branding person for accountants, but that
Exactly.
doesn't make you famous in the branding world. So you can
Yeah.
still hide in the bathroom and no one's going to come
Yeah,
chasing you.
exactly. And silly things like I know everyone in the accounting profession, the influencers in the accounting profession, and they know me, but I never talk to them. I'll see them maybe if I've got a speaking gig and I'll say hello, but I don't go out with them. Like some of them all go out and they get together in groups, and it's like, no, I'm not playing that game. But if you want to talk to me one on one, if you want a Zoom call, I'll have a Zoom call and talk to you, but I'm not coming out and getting drunk with you on Friday night when you're all getting together in a group. No way, Jose.
Yeah, just a bit too much for
Way
you.
too much. Yeah, it's way too much.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of it is just honoring who we really are, accepting who we are. Because I'm also hearing that introverts go through a bit of a battle of
Mm-hmm.
feeling they have to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's counterproductive, especially for an introvert, because it's exhausting.
Yeah,
And
totally.
my wife's an introvert. I don't know if you met her or remember her.
I
Um,
think I remember
and you
her.
wouldn't know it, but when she spends too much time with people, she's exhausted.
Yeah.
And she sleeps really well, like really well, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So this makes a
Interesting.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
And she'll come back. She has very little in. Actually, I don't have much in the evenings anymore, but she'll have less than me. So this all makes sense as well. And she is an introvert. Um, so honoring ourselves, honoring
Yeah.
our energy, um, really being congruent and understanding ourselves is key to truly going out there on stage and being influential and speaking.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the results you've seen when you've gone out there and actually gone, you know what, I'm going to not park, I'm going to honor my introvertness, get on stage.
Yeah.
What has kind of been the results for you?
Oh, Elliot, I would say that probably the majority of my success has been down to speaking on stage, because if we talk about marketing as a whole, the whole of marketing, branding, and sales, there's things that attract people to you, and then there's things that convert people to buy from you. And I would say that speaking is all about attracting people to you. So they might, for the first time ever, see you on stage. And then when they hear you speak, they see you as an expert because you're on that stage. So you get people to know you, like you, and trust you very, very quickly as a speaker. And when you are speaking on stage, you get clients, you get partnership opportunities, you get people going, I'm going to work with you because I saw you on stage. For me, it's enabled me to get my books out into the world. I've written 3 books, and it's enabled me to get my books out into the world. And I would say it's probably, speaking's generated me £500,000, maybe more, I could attribute to speaking on stage. Over the past 6-7 years is about the time I've really been speaking.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. So that's a lot of
maybe
coins.
more. Yeah, a lot of coins. Yeah, a lot of coins in my pocket for expending a few coins. It's worth it. It is worth it.
There you go. And that is something you can literally take to the bank and cash. So
Exactly.
that's pretty
Yeah, and I
awesome.
would say that 100%. Speaking is something that, apart from an anxious introvert, I think is key. And don't let your introvertness kind of stop you, because it's not about us, it's about helping people in the room.
Fabulous. So you've shared so much amazing wisdom. How do people reach out to you? What are the channels? Of course, with respecting the boundaries of your introvertness, don't follow her into the bathroom and want to have a conversation with her. That's just weird anyway, if anyone did that. But in terms of
the collared in bathrooms before, and that's a really scary thing because you think you're safe in a bathroom. Okay, so people can get hold of me by going to my website, which is amandacwatts.com. So it's quite simple, amandacwatts.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, Amanda C. Watts. But if you go to Google and just type in Amanda C. Watts, make sure you put the C in there, then I'll come up and you can find me anywhere. To chat on Messenger, and I have no problem with that. I can conserve my energy when I do that. And if anyone wants more help with that, I'm actually running a webinar. I run them regularly, called Marketing for Introverts. If they want to go deeper into the 4 kinds of introverts that are there, that's on my website as well. Yeah, there's just reach out. There's so much that I can support when it comes to doing marketing as an introvert.
Fab. And very quickly, tell us about the C then.
Okay, so Amanda Watts, if you Googled Amanda Watts, I got married, 7, 8, I don't know how long ago I got married. At some point in the past 10 years, I got married. And Amanda Watts, if you Googled it, was a serial killer in Australia. Oh. And I didn't want to be that Googleable. So I put the C in. And Amanda C. Watts is now someone who helps accountants and introverts.
And doesn't kill people in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Not a serial killer in Australia. And then I think Amanda Watts is also someone who This Isn't Me, who sold tickets to heaven, golden tickets to heaven, and something to do with a crocodile as well. That was the American Amanda Watts. But the English Amanda Watts is very safe and very calm and collected, and doesn't kill anyone or sell tickets to heaven. The worst case is she makes you really, really visible and helps you market yourself as an introvert. So she might kill your ability not to be marketed or marketable, but beyond that, you're safe. Beyond that, you're safe. Exactly. Brilliant. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us on the Public Speaking Expert podcast. As always, a pleasure to hear you, to connect with you, to hear your wisdom, and of course converse with you. And I know we're going to be seeing each other again in a couple of months. I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, everybody, any last words of wisdom before I wrap this up? Yeah, don't let your brain get in the way, because it's your brain that's stopping you. You have a gift, get it out into the world. There is a way to do it. You just have to align your personality with your energy. There you are. Couldn't have said it better myself. So remember, people, we record this live every Monday. They're released every Saturday. So make sure you like, subscribe. And of course, if you comment and send me a picture of it and it's a nice comment, I'll send you a copy of my book as a gift. Otherwise, if there's any way we can help you, reach out to me, LinkedIn or via the website. We'd love to support you. In the meantime, be seen, be heard, and always be more giraffe. Till next time. Bye.